everybody. Welcome back to the High Roller Sports Betting Podcast. And once again, you're here with Coach and T, and we are ready to break down all the Week 0 and Week 1 big games. The first big game that we're going to talk about is in what we call Week 0. It's pretty much before everything else gets going, and it is the big game, and it's a big game because it's two Big Ten opponents over in Ireland, and that'll be Nebraska versus Northwestern. That's going to be on Saturday, August 27th, and you'll find it at 12:30 Eastern Time on Fox. Right now, at time of recording, Nebraska is a 12.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 50.5. So, T, tell me what you think about that game.
Well, because these two are conference opponents, we'll start with last year. These two teams did face off in 2021. Where, no, I guess if you want to call it a face-off, Nebraska ended up winning that game 56-7 at home. They had over 650 total yards of offense, which against a Northwestern team that prides itself, that, I mean, they ran for 427 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
They did whatever they wanted to do. Northwestern could not stop them. And when you look at, like, returners, I mean, Northwestern, they do bring back 9 guys on offense. To only 5 defensively, where Nebraska has 7 offensively and 5 returning defenders. But one of the big things that jumped out to me early on when looking at Nebraska is they only bring back 32.5% of their total yards of offense from a year ago.
Okay.
Now, a big part of that is because they do lose Adrian Martinez. He transferred to Kansas State. They replace him with Casey Thompson. Casey Thompson was the quarterback at Texas, where he had a decent year, was 63% completion percentage, went 24-9 touchdown to interception. It didn't quite have the turnovers and like untimely turnovers that Adrian Martinez would have, especially fumbles, but he's not one of those elite quarterbacks, at least not in my opinion. Yeah. Nebraska also comes with a new offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh, and why that's important is Pittsburgh is one of the most pass-heavy systems in the country, where they ranked in the top 10 in both points per game, passing yards per game, passing yards, and passing efficiency a year ago. And they threw the ball on about 67.5% of their offensive plays. So looking at it from the Nebraska side, where their offense a year ago was you had read option with Adrian Martinez, and they took shots down the field.
Yep.
Under Mark Whipple, I think is the last name.
Yeah.
From the new OC, it's going to be a lot more pass heavy.
Okay.
So losing Martinez but adding Casey Thompson may be a little bit of addition by subtraction. They're just two kind of different quarterbacks.
Yep.
Now they do lose a lot in terms of wide receivers. They lose their top targets. Now they added a couple guys in the transfer portal, added a kid from Iowa. But with the system change, their wide receivers should put up pretty big numbers.
Okay.
When looking at defensively, Garrett Nelson was big. He was
nice
11.5 tackles for loss last year. Also led the team in sacks. Different guys like that. And when looking at Casey compared to Adrian Martinez, he only had 157 yards on the ground, where Adrian was a lot more.
He's a runner.
Yeah. Where if he could get out, he could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Casey Thompson isn't quite that quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side of things, with Northwestern, they need Evan Hull to have a big year at running back.
Yeah.
Now, they're not great on the O-line. They aren't great at wide receiver. I mean, he's a nice back, but he's going to have to play above his talent level, so to speak, in my opinion, if Northwestern is going to be able to do anything and even keep this game relatively close.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My kind of take on this game, and people, if you watched our first podcast, you'll know what I think of Northwestern, that I call playing in the phone booth. They want to be inside that line of scrimmage, running off tackle, running between the guards and in the center and through the center, and have it be a power run type of game. And they like playing teams that run power run against them. They like bringing in teams to Chicago when it's and play on Lake Michigan when it's 10 in the morning, 10 a.m. in the morning, and they can turn the game into just a slugfest. And where they've always had trouble is when they've got to match athlete versus athlete, especially on the perimeter. And last year, Nebraska got to the perimeter on them without question, and just abused them.
They couldn't stop the run.
Exactly. And I mean, so with sweeps and with the sweeps and the read options and the jet sweeps, they could get to that perimeter on Northwestern and just really abused them that way. For me, I kind of look at that same type of game. I think Nebraska is going to try and open them up, spread them out once again. They don't really want to play with Northwestern inside those tackle boxes. I think they're going to try and get outside, especially with the new coordinator. And let's face it, Coach Frost, he's one of those guys that's probably on the hot seat.
Oh, definitely. He's got to win. And against a Northwestern team, you need to beat Northwestern if you're at Nebraska.
They've got to win those games this year. And, I'm being a former college coach. I'm not big on trying to get anybody fired or anybody on the hot seat in any way, shape, or form. But when I look at motivation in games, Coach Frost is going to be motivated to at least have an exciting team. Now, when people have heard me talk about Nebraska, you hear me talk about how they underachieve, how they're better on paper than what their performances generally are. And you brought it up. I think the Martinez boy had just some real untimely turnovers last year that really hurt their overall record. So look for Nebraska to try and be impressive, especially early on. This is a big game. It's going to be a nationally televised game. It's an international game because it's over in Ireland. So I think Nebraska is going to try and put up a lot of points.
Can Northwestern keep it within 2 touchdowns?
And exactly. Can Northwestern control the clock enough with their running game and be timely enough in their passing game to keep it close? That's how this one always breaks down.
I mean, 8 of the last 11 times these two teams have played, it has been a one-score game.
Yeah.
So generally, Northwestern, now granted, Northwestern had some better teams in previous years than they do this year.
Yeah.
But overall, the way I look at it, if I had to bet it, I think Nebraska. I've personally got Nebraska about a little over 2 touchdowns, right around the 2 touchdown mark. Yeah. But with the current line at 12.5, there's just not a lot of value left in that line for me to play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's bet it at your own risk. Don't turn yourself into a degenerate gambler and bet on the first game of the year if you don't feel it's the right game where you have enough value in the game that you feel you can make money. I'm staying away. If you made me bet on it, I would probably lean. I agree with T. I think it's going to be at least a 2 touchdown game. I think Nebraska's overall athleticism, even though we haven't seen it on the perimeter, what I see on paper, I think they're going to be able to get outside on Northwestern, and I think they win the game handily.
Yeah. And I mean, and as we mentioned, it's like, can Northwestern score enough to keep it within 2 touchdowns? You've seen that kind of in the total movement, down from 54.5 to 50.5.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, with that one, under 54.5 wasn't a bad look.
Yeah, I'd agree.
50.5, you've already lost 4 points of value. I mean, it's already come down. If I had to, I like the under a little bit better than the over, just because I don't think Hall, who averaged about 84 yards per game on the ground, is going to be able to move the ball efficiently enough for this Northwestern team in order to sustain some drives. I envision Northwestern having a decent amount of 3 and outs, maybe a first down, but then having to punt and giving the ball back to Nebraska, who's going to try to put some points on the board.
And the way I look at it, especially in these early games, you mentioned the amount of production coming back. You've got new offensive coordinator, a lot of new wide receivers in that wide receiver room in Nebraska. While I think they can take advantage of some things, and I might be surprised by some of these Nebraska receivers coming out, I just don't trust it enough. I don't have enough of a feel for what that's going to look like. So I'm kind of, if you had to make me bet, I would lean towards the under right now just because of all the new people involved.